Hello, my friends. Hello, my friends. Hello, my friends. Hello, my friends. This is Stephanie O'Connell. This is Stephanie. This is Stephanie O'Connell. This is Stephanie O'Connell. And this is Stephanie O'Connell, founder of Positive Change Acceleration. I have felt guilty about a variety of things in my life, and I'm going to come back and share a story about my guilty pleasure. But let's first talk about guilt and where it comes from and what's healthy and what's not healthy. So, guilt is an emotion. And I'm not going to talk about guilty like the state of someone being guilty. I'm talking about the emotion of guilt, which is a feeling. And it's a feeling that we feel when a certain behavior or action we believe has harmed someone else. And it has been shown in psychological studies that the feeling of guilt can be found in 3-year-olds. So we are experiencing guilt very early in life. And when we are younger, it actually is helpful in providing boundaries. And so some boundaries are formed through religious organizations. And so you might follow a code of conduct or ethics or commandments, whatever your beliefs are, that set up this is how we behave, or this is what we do, and this is what we don't do in this group, in this family, in this classroom, even for students. And so when we are doing something against those rules, we can feel guilty because we feel like we have done harm. So a great example is I won't steal from somebody. That if I do that, if I steal something, then I am harming that person in some way, and therefore I feel guilty. And so guilt in a healthy way, believe it or not, actually helps protect our relationships. And what I mean by that is, so for example, and this actually happened to me when my twins were 1 year old, it was my second Mother's Day, and it went awry. And for those that maybe can relate to a Mother's Day that went not the way you expected, just type me in the quotes. The kids were all over the place, and there was an attempt at a meal to be made that didn't work out, and so the whole day was a bit not as expected. And I, in that day, forgot to call my own mom and wish her a Mother's Day, because I was all caught up in my own being a mom and how that Mother's Day didn't play out the way I thought it would, and I felt guilty. And actually, that is a healthy form of guilt, because it prompted me to call her the very next day and acknowledge that I didn't call, and not that I had an excuse or reason that I wanted to defend, but just I felt bad because I really wish I had called her on Mother's Day. And so guilt can help us in our relationships. It can help keep them strong, because if we do feel that guilt and we do make amends and we do take care of it, we can move on. The challenge is when guilt becomes unhealthy is when it's unresolved. So I could feel guilty about something a long time ago. I never addressed it. I never atoned for that in some way or released it one way or the other. So I'm still carrying this guilt around for years and years and years. And that's unhealthy guilt. That is an emotion that it's almost like baggage that we're carrying. It's like having a backpack that's weighted and you're carrying it with you through your day-to-day life. And that is something that is unhealthy. And so what they talk about is, in the psychological realms, is that you need to come to terms with that guilt, either make amends if you can, or find a way to release it in some way. What I want to talk about is how to maybe shift some of our beliefs that are sparking the guilt in the first place. So I want to go all the way back to those rules or commandments or whatever you might be following, and say, is that really a belief that serves you right now? Is that something that you want to continue to live by? And if not, if we can make an adjustment to the belief, then maybe you don't even have the guilty feeling in the first place. And so that is what I've learned in the Authentic Living certification that I completed, is the more you can get all the way back to the source or the root of the issue, then you can actually stop the feeling from ever happening in the first place. Before I go to how-tos though, I want to share the connection of feelings and energy, because I think it's really important to understand that all feelings have a vibrational energy, like sound. And certain emotions are lower energy. So if you think of like a cone going up like this, a cone of vibrational energy with megahertz, the ones on the bottom are pretty low energy, and the ones on the top are high energy. And so one of the aspects of being in this group, that we want to love our life right now. And so imagine at the top of that funnel is love, joy, abundance, enlightenment, wonderfully positive, high vibrational emotions. Imagine what's down here: shame, guilt, grief. So some of the emotions that take us down in our energy level. And when we're in a lower energy level, it's more challenging to solve problems. It can affect our health if we are living in a lower vibrational state all the time. It definitely affects our mood. So I have been learning, how do you raise your vibration? So if I'm down in that lower vibration of guilt, or grief, or sadness, or even apathy is kind of a lower emotion, how do we raise our vibration? How do we raise it in the moment? So we're going to talk about getting back to the belief is one, because if I don't even go to the bottom of the cone in guilt, that's great. But let's say I still have the guilt and I go to the bottom of the cone. We're going to talk about how you get back up to the top of it. All right, so let me share my story about my guilty pleasure. And I started the thread off with, I feel guilty if I sleep or take a nap. Always have, continue to do so. So here's what I know about it. I actually trace this belief back to my maternal grandmother. And so a little bit of this story is I grew up in northern New Jersey. My grandparents immigrated through Ellis Island. My grandmother is from Switzerland. My grandfather is from Germany, my mother's side. They met in the US and married. But came through Ellis Island and were immigrants. And there were a lot of frameworks and ways that they operated that are culturally more based in their country of origin than maybe other rules or things to live by from other cultures. And when my mother married, she moved down the street. So my Swiss grandmother had a big influence on my life. I saw her almost every day of my life. My mom's a nurse, retired now. She would work 7 to 3. So my Oma, which is grandmother in German, we would go there after school. We would go there for lunch because people didn't stay for lunch back then. You walked home for lunch and back to school. And so she was a big influence in my life. And she had a belief that you should be up with the sun and you should be working. And for her, that was household management. So household management was tend to the garden, clean the house, take care of some home project. When she was back in Switzerland, milk the cows. So you're up with the sun, you should be working. So the idea of sleeping in or sleeping late violated that ground rule, that principle. And one time my mom was at work and it was the weekend, so we didn't have to get up for school. And I remember her coming up the stairs to our bedrooms to my older brother and my younger sister and I and saying, "You must get up. It is time. The sun is up. You need to be up. You can sleep when you're dead," is how she said it. And I remember that phrase has stuck with me, obviously, my whole life. And so I feel guilty when I sleep or take a nap because I hear her voice saying, you know, you should be up, you should be doing things, you should be up with the sun, you should be busy, etc., etc., etc. And for the most part, that is a really good thing to live by. However, in today's day and age, I am finding that I need a nap to restore. I am really feeling the bombardment of all this technology, and working remotely is just adding to it. All the screen time, all the video time that I'm experiencing, is a short nap is really restorative to me. And so what happens is when I'm about to take that nap, I hear the voice, "You can sleep when you're dead."
And now I say, I'm going to be dead if I don't sleep. So I had to find a way to turn that phrase upside down so that I don't feel guilty about taking a nap. And for the most part, I can stop myself and say, hold on, I know that was Oma's belief. It doesn't have to be your belief. There are no, and sometimes I'll even go, there are no cows to milk right now. There are no tomatoes to be harvested out of the garden. And if there are, they can wait. They can wait my 30 minutes for me to get my nap. And so that's what I mean about going back and checking that thinking. And so when I go back to the guilty pleasure exercise, and I was looking at some of the things that made us feel guilty is I should be doing something else. I should be productive. I should. And what I find is when I hear the word should, that is usually an indication that I am bumping up against a belief that maybe doesn't serve me in that moment or longer time. If I feel like I should be doing something, is that for me? Do I believe I should be doing it, or does someone else believe I should be doing it? And so I challenge us, and I'm going to give us a challenge towards the end here, to really look at our beliefs and say, are some of our beliefs getting in the way? And the guilty pleasure for me is such a good one, because pleasure, enjoyment, joy is at the top of the funnel, and then by feeling guilty, we drag ourselves down, spiral down to the bottom of the energy funnel like that, and almost take away the pleasure, take away the joy. That whatever that was, watching that show, doing that craft, knitting while watching TV, some of the ideas that were reading the romance novels, whatever those were, we just zapped the fun out of it ourselves by allowing ourselves to feel guilty. So I challenge you, as you find joy and work on loving your life right now, every day, and if that guilt feeling creeps in, like, you should be productive, Stephanie, you should be productive, I challenge you to rewire that thought and say, I'm a human being. I need to recharge, just like my electronics do. I'm going to watch this show for 20 minutes or listen to this podcast or fill in the blank, read this romance novel for X amount of time, because that's how I'm going to recharge. And that is being productive. And so in some ways, you're actually reframing what productivity is. I had to change my mindset that a nap is actually productive for me. It restores me. It rejuvenates me. It gets my energy back up. And I challenge you to rethink some of those guilty feelings and see if you can reframe it this week as part of our learning challenge. The other thing I want you to think about is just how could you pause in that moment and maybe take a different direction or take a pivot. The mentor that I worked with in Authentic Living, who I learned so much from, Mandy Morris, talks about pattern interrupts. And what she says is that we have patterns in our lives. And so it's almost like we have beliefs and patterns of how we do certain things. And some of it is almost unconscious. We are so used to doing things a certain way that we don't even realize we're doing that way. Well, if you want to change that, meaning I want to change how I think and feel about naps, back to my example, I have to interrupt myself when I'm actually having that thought and feeling and saying, hold on, wait a minute. This is not necessarily my thought. That was my grandmother's thought. It's not my thought. What's my thought? And move forward. And so you need to interrupt yourself. And I know that we're taught maybe that interrupting is rude. It's not if you're stopping a pattern intentionally and you don't want that pattern to play out. It's like a song you don't want to play all the way through anymore. And what you can do is you're actually rewiring your brain. You're actually shifting neural pathways in your brain so that it's like, I'm not going to play that grooved song, that pattern anymore. I'm going to interrupt it, scratch, so it doesn't play that same way. And this is the pattern or song I want to play going forward. So that is really the truth about guilt. It can be healthy, help you with your relationships, help you maintain your relationships, but it can be unhealthy. if we're carrying it around like baggage, we're not resolving it, and if we're killing our joy, our pleasure, our fun in life, because we have this weighted feeling of guilt. And you can change your thoughts, because thoughts lead to emotions. So if you change your thought about the thing you're feeling guilty about, you can feel less guilty. And so I'm going to put up a growth challenge for us this week. It can be twofold. You can take your guilty pleasure and work with that you posted last week and say, okay, how am I going to reframe this thought so I don't feel guilty about doing that? And or you can find a creative way to interrupt yourself when you're feeling the feeling. When you find your energy is dipping, it's getting low into some of those energies, what do you do to pick yourself up? What do you do to raise your vibration? I'll tell you, one of the things for me is music. Music is such a big part of my life, and if I'm feeling low energy and I need a boost, I put on certain songs and I am just lifted. My toes start tapping, I might start moving, and so for me, music is an awesome way to interrupt myself and get myself into a higher vibration. Because we don't want to live in that low vibration, we really don't. It just doesn't empower us to take charge of our lives and our emotions. And so I will post in the group not only this video, but I have some handouts on the cone. They're nice, they're colorful, but I tried and I thought they wouldn't look right on the Facebook screen. So you can see where all these emotions stack up and what gets you into that lower vibration and what will pick you up. And so with that, I am going to start to wrap us up here. A few logistics about the group. I have been so thankful that I've gotten some messages from people that they're finding this group helpful and they want to invite others to join, which is fantastic. My suggestion is that you actually send them the Facebook link to join. Don't do the join within the group because on the back end that causes some challenges for us to kind of manage the group. So if you want to refer, which is your choice, and I love it if you do, go ahead and send them the full Facebook link. And as if you're interested in talking more about any of these topics, deeper, either energetic healing or coaching, let me know. Direct message me in Facebook and we'll get something on the calendar so we can go from there. Take care and bye for now.